Morning, church. Hey, what would you do if, as a child, your parents forgot you somewhere? Now, you know we're going to the scriptures. You may even know what story we're about ready to tell. But when I wrote that question down, the first thing that came to my mind, take it for what it means to you, was Home Alone. Right. And so just to celebrate, I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, what are some of the things that Kevin McAllister did when he was home alone? Here's a few things in the list that ChatGPT shot out for me. He jumped on his parents' bed while eating popcorn. Dangerous. Ate junk food like ice cream and pizza often in front of the TV. I get that. He watched a gangster movie that he wasn't normally allowed to watch, hilariously mocking the lines. I agree with that assessment. He used aftershave and screamed due to the sting. I think we all remember that scene. He went grocery shopping by himself, cleverly navigating adult responsibilities. I think that's a great description. He went through his brother Buzz's private things, finding firecrackers and a tarantula. And he accidentally broke Buzz's shelves, spilling belongings everywhere. Now, there was a whole other section of all the ways that he creatively protected his house from burglars, but we don't have time to go into that. And so, again, but that's not who was forgotten by their parents in today's Devo. Instead, that was Jesus. And we read about the story in Luke chapter 2. Verses 41 through 50, and it reads this. It says, every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to their custom. After the festival was over, while his parents was returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. And then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, son, oh, by the way, astonished means surprised to the point of yelling at you. That's what the Greek word actually means. That's hilarious. She said, son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. It's funny. The Son of God had all the truth at 12 years old, but of course none of the tact. And so he said this, why were you searching for me? I don't know if the Son of God gave it with the customary eye roll that a 12-year-old will often give you as they ask questions like this. Why were you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying to them. So I'm just kind of curious, how do you act when you're lost? How do you act when you're lost? Do you flip out on every driver around you and the people who are in the car with you? Do you get quiet and really sweaty? That's me. That's how I respond to getting lost. Are you quick to ask for directions, or do you refuse to ask for directions even if you get even more lost? Well, I've heard this story a lot, and it's written from the perspective of the parents, but I want to look at it from the perspective of Jesus. Because in our story, Jesus was lost. Jesus was forgotten. Jesus was not home alone, but in Jerusalem alone. And how did he handle it? The first thing that I want to draw your attention to is that he didn't freak out. Like, he didn't freak out. The plan he was on, the path that he was supposed to walk, it broke, crumbled, disappeared underneath his feet, and he didn't freak out. Mary and Joseph, they freaked out. The phrase that they used, they had been anxiously searching for him. Now, searching just means to look, but that word anxiously, it's very interesting. It's only used 4 times in the New Testament. And the thing that's fascinating is that there's 2 times it's used as agony, right? So they were searching for him with agony. The only other time it's used is in the book of Acts. And it's in the context of Paul telling the leaders of the church in Ephesus that they would never see him again, that he was going to Rome to die. And it says that they had agony, that they agonized, that they were anxious because of that, right? That's the word. That's how they were searching. So Mary and Joseph, as they were looking for Jesus, they were doing so in the mental context of the worst case scenario. That's what Mary and Joseph were doing, but not Jesus. You see, Jesus didn't do that. He didn't have the worst possible outcome in his mind. Jesus simply said, well, I'm in Jerusalem. My parents aren't here. And so what am I going to do? And it was real simple for him. He was going to do what any typical Jewish 12-year-old was supposed to do. He went to school. And so he went to the temple, and the description of the conversation that he's having, the questions that he's asking, like this is how young men were taught in Jewish culture. They were asked a question, they responded not back with a statement, but with another question to reveal the depth of their understanding of the Torah. And so, like, I just love this. Like, if you listen to yesterday's video when we were talking about, like, how do you discern God's next step for your life? Like, when you're lost, when you don't know what to do, it's funny because Jesus did the exact same thing that Joseph and Mary did in Egypt. He settled in, he kept up his rhythms and his routines, and he obeyed, right? Like, he didn't freak out. He just settled in and he obeyed. And that's how, when we feel lost, like, we regain peace, is we don't freak out and we just settle in to where we're at, the people God has around us, the place he has us in life, and we obey. The other thing that I want you to notice is that he remembered who he was. He remembered who he was. You see, Mary comes back and she's flipping out, and she said, and Jesus is just like, didn't you know that I would be in my Father's house? Like, didn't you know that this is where I would be? I know who I am. God is my Father. I am his son, and that determines how I live. That determines how I feel about a situation. That determines how I'm going to respond when life seems to break. And so there's lots of ways, y'all, that we can feel lost in life. You may feel lost emotionally. And so it's just important to remember that just as Jesus knew that he was the Son of God, like, you have to remember that you, because you're in Christ Jesus, you share that same identity. You are a child of God, and he is your Father. And so again, you may feel lost emotionally, but he is your peace. He can provide that for you. You may feel lost financially, but he is your provision. He is Jehovah Jireh, the Lord your provider. You may feel lost in life, uncertain about which way to go or what to do or what your purpose is. And Jesus is the way and the life. And so no matter how we feel lost, that understanding of ourselves as God's children, it brings peace in the midst of uncertainty. And so there are going to be times when you feel lost. Don't freak out. Settle in and obey, and remember who you are and remember whose you are. Church, hope you have a great day.